Welcome to The Wait Is Over, brought to you by Wow Hydrate. I am here with the magic man, Paulie Malignaggi. I'm, of course, joined by Spencer Oliver. Paulie, I'll come to you first. The weights are in, everything is done. One more sleep to go. What impressed you, or you know, what did you notice about the weigh-in?
You know what? The same thing I noticed with yesterday. You know, it was yesterday. Actually, I won't say the same thing. I'll say Eubank yesterday looked a little bit more reserved. Today, he looked like he was almost in a good mood. Maybe making weight puts you in a good mood. I know you put me in a good mood. You know, when you make weight, you can go eat. But Eubank looked like he was in a better mood today. Yesterday, he almost looked like he didn't want to really deal with it. It looked like Smith got the best of the trash talking, the witty trash talking in the press conference. But today, Eubank looked more alive. You know, he looked like with a smile on his face, looked into the crowd with a confident look. Even with the stare down, he was kind of giving it back to Smith. He was looking away and kind of smiling with his hands together, like almost like, I can't wait to get my hands on you. That doesn't necessarily mean Smith wasn't confident, but I saw sort of a more upbeat Eubank today than I did yesterday at the press conference.
Yeah, do you know what? For me, I think it was that smile. You hit the nail on the head there, Paulie. You know how difficult it was to make weight, and when you made that weight, that was like the biggest fight was over. Now you can focus on what you got to do. And for me, that's what I saw with Chris Eubank, was that he'd made that weight and he come in actually at 159.5. He come in lighter than Liam Smith, which surprised me because I thought he was going to miss it by a couple of pounds, and I thought that would have happened because I think he's so tight at 160. I think that may have been down to the punch resistance of the last fight, and so I'm thinking, well, a strategic move may be coming in at 162. Now, Paulie, you can explain better than anyone. When you're tight at the weight, that extra 2 pounds of fluid makes a huge difference. And I'm thinking, does Chris think, well, you know what, I'll take the penalty, I'll come in at 162, and this then flips this fight on its head, and I really don't know who wins. So I was surprised actually that he come in lighter, but he also, you could see how happy he was to make that weight as well, and he looked like a different guy.
Well, that's kind of the thing. When you come in overweight and you intend to come in overweight, you have sort of a defiant look, right? You have that look like, okay, I'm overweight, I'm going to take the penalty. But you could see that he was in a good mood. Like, he was almost like proud of himself, like, yeah, I made the weight. I feel good right now, you know, and that's sort of that's why we're having this conversation instead.
Are you shocked that he came in under? I think he did the same in the first one. You know, Liam was bang on 160.
But do you know what it is with that? I think that ego plays a huge part of that. Now, Chris Eubank Jr., we know is a very egotistic guy, you know, and he's a very proud man, and he'll go, well, if I come in 2 pounds over, right, so now people are going to be saying, well, he done that, and he's sort of like half cheating, and the victory wouldn't be the same and everything else. And I think his own ego brought him in lighter again to say, listen, I really believe I can do this, because he does believe that. Speaking to him in the week, Paulie, right, he said to me, and I've never seen this Chris before, he said to me, Spence, for the first time I feel like my back's up against the wall. I feel the pressure, and I'm like, wow, this is coming from Chris. He said, I feel the pressure, and champions feed off pressure, and this may work to his advantage.
I feel like you're going in the right direction with that. I also looked at, you know, when you're making weight, right? I mean, the scale you have in your own personal room, and when you come to the weigh-in, sometimes it is a quarter pound difference, a half pound difference. So sometimes you can come a little bit light without intending to. But I will say, I noticed when a guy takes off his socks, because I was the same way, he's trying to get, he's making sure he made the weight, you know? If I was confident I was on weight, my socks didn't come off. If I wasn't sure, like if I knew it was close, my socks were coming off.
My pants come off as well.
I mean, if you have to, you have to. But you start out with, serious. The first thing I noticed Chris did was he took the socks off. He took the socks off right away. He was
so you know he's tight. You know he's tight.
It wasn't an easy making weight, but he made it.
160 is obviously Chris Eubank's weight, not necessarily Liam Smith's. Who's happier at this weight, do you feel?
I mean, listen, even Liam, when you get to a certain age, you naturally kind of go up. And that's not the kind of natural when you're from 18 to 20 where you're naturally going up, but you're strong. You're naturally going up as you're getting older, because your metabolism kind of slows, so you've got to go up in weight because you want to keep as much energy as you can, but you're not going to have the natural strength you had at the previous weight. And the difference is when you're 18 to 20, you do keep that strength you actually, because you're growing. It's a different kind of going up in weight, but nonetheless, Liam showed us he can be effective here. You know, he's a consistent guy, and he's won the first fight.
I think moving up to 160 at this stage of his career suits Liam much more. He still looked chiseled. Everything. You think Chris Eubank back in 2018 when he lost to George Groves, he was at 168, right? And so, you know, it's harder to keep the weight as you get older and whatnot. And I think in the last couple of fights, as we've seen with Chris, making 160 is a massive struggle. So I think the weight definitely suits Liam at this stage of their careers.
Both look very confident. Both look happy. One more night to go. What does Chris Eubank have to do to get the win?
Listen, it's quite simple. Speaking to Bomac, and he's got the tactics perfect on this one. He says doesn't want to try and implement anything into his style. He wants to strip it back to basics, but it's quite simple. Stay switched on for 3 minutes of each round and go back to basics. Don't give it all this. Don't throw your jab, bring it back to your waist, because Smith is a great fighter. Like what we saw in the first couple of rounds, he stalks his opponent down and he's working it out. He sets the traps and he goes. And if someone switches off while they're in the pocket, he'll make you pay. So I think for Chris, he's got to go back to where he was at the beginning, where he's got to fight with that rawness, but he's got to be educated, but he can't switch off. For me, that's what it is. 3 minutes of each round.
Do you keep him long? Would you, or do you?
Chris will start long. Chris will start long, but he has to get down in the trenches because that's where Leon will bring him. That's where Leon will bring him. But as we've seen with Chris, and I've referred to George Groves again, as we see with Chris, he can go in the trenches. He don't mind that. He's tough. He's got that DNA of his old man. You know, he's a tough guy. So I think he's got to try and keep it as long as possible. But eventually, he's going to have to get in the trenches.
I also don't necessarily feel that he has the outside boxing to keep it at the distance for that long of a period of time against a guy like Smith, who's adept at closing range. You know, when you look at a guy like Smith, it's a lot of mental pressure as well. He's consistently kind of going through the gears. He'll start out in that first gear, slow start, and then go it up into second, third, and eventually he's really in your face, and now he's making your life miserable. And that's sort of what happened in the first fight. I think with a guy like that, you know, Eubank says, oh, it's going to be a war, I'm ready for a war. But with a guy like Smith, who sort of presses you in the front door, but he's not really tricky, but he's pressing you because he's mentally trying to get in your head, you can't throw everything hard at him because he's up high, he's looking to catch you, and he's looking to wear you down and looking to show you, hey, no matter how hard you throw your shots, I'm going to be in your face all night, and you better be ready for this. Instead, I feel like when you fight guys like that, you've got to have a bit of a long game that's varied. You've got to kind of use those touch shots, use that measuring stick a little bit, and then mix those hard shots in there. Because if you know how to measure your distance a little bit, no matter, and he's coming in through the front door, it's not that tricky. All he's trying to do is mentally break you. So you can kind of touch him and go, touch him, shoot those shots, go back on the outside, kind of touch, use the hard jab here and there, and you can kind of, if you start dropping some feints, all of a sudden that mental pressure that he'll start to freeze.
Has Chris got the ability to do that?
I don't think he does. That's the thing.
That is the problem.
So that's the thing. But if Chris can mix and match it just enough, you can put rounds in the bank without burning too much energy. That's all Liam's looking to do. Liam's looking to mentally pressure you so that you physically and mentally fatigue. And I think that's what happened in the first fight, where Liam just kind of bringing it to you. Because it's not that tricky. Liam is consistent. I've always said to people, Liam is a meat and potatoes kind of guy, but it's high level meat. You know, it's in America we got like Ruth Chris or Peter Luger's. You know, he's not a cheap piece of meat. You know, but he's still meat and potatoes. It's still basic, but he's consistent. And so you can still beat that consistency with a little bit of trickery. I will say one thing. Eubank was winning the first fight until he got stopped. Okay? Eubank was doing well in the first fight until he got stopped. I feel like there's also some adjustments Smith needs to make. Everybody's been consistently talking about the adjustments Eubank needs to make. But let's not forget, Smith cannot also bank on just catching lightning in a bottle. Like, I'll just press him until I catch him. Because you can't really go into a game plan in a fight like that. So there will be small adjustments Liam Smith will have made as well. And possibly that's part of the adjustments, where it's not being so one-dimensional, trying to get in the front door, but still keeping that pressure on Eubank.
So here's the thing with Liam Smith, and notoriously through his career, he gives those first couple of rounds away looking at his opponent, you know, because he doesn't do nothing spectacular. He stalks forward, as you see, switches, and once he's there, he goes, and he makes his opponent pay. So I think really the adjustments do need to come from Chris, and you hit it bang on, Paulie, with, he's got to keep it as long as possible. Great fighters, class fighters, they can tap, they can move around, they can fiddle his way around.
And the feints.
And the feints and all that. He needs to do that. I think the $1 million question is, has he got the ability to do that? And this is what we're going to find out on Saturday night.
We know what kind of fight they should fight. What kind of fight do we expect?
Well, listen, this is make or break for both guys now. You know, there's nowhere else to go. I think that if Eubank pulls off the impossible and gets the victory, then you get the trilogy. Because I think that's where we go.
Is it the impossible?
No, it's not.
I feel like Smith has to make adjustments too.
I'm glad you. Do you know what? I'm glad you said that, Paulie.
Because Eubank was winning the first fight. There's arguments for both sides here.
No, if he pulls off the unthinkable, maybe I say, but. Like, speaking to the crowd out there, we done an open workout on Wednesday, and I'm speaking to the crowd. Now, you think we're in Liam's backyard, really? You know, like Liverpool next door. 50% of the people said Chris Eubank wins the fight. I was really surprised by the reaction of the people. So no, it's not like impossible, but I think it's just one of those ones. If he pulls it off, it's going to be
Sometimes you go into good fights and we can kind of pick a winner, and even if it's a good fight. I feel like the people I talk to in this fight, there's not really a sure thing. And I speak
Yeah, I
to,
agree.
and I speak to guys who gamble on
Yeah.
boxing, and even guys who gamble on boxing that I speak to, they're like, as far as a winner goes, it's not a gimme. You know, it's not one of those where it's not as easy as some other weeks where you can kind of pick it even if it's a good fight.
Predictions.
I'm going Liam Smith points.
Oh, you're gonna make us do that?
Yeah.
You're gonna make us do that?
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
doing it. I'm going
I'm
Liam
only
Smith
doing that
points.
here because we're on Boxer. I'm gonna say Eubank. Late stoppage.
There you
Only
go,
one way
baby.
to find out. That is to tune in to Sky Sports tomorrow night to see the conclusion.